Tehran, March 13, 2026. In a sea of protesters, a powerful man smiles, surrounded by elite security. His name is Ali Larijani. 4 days later, he is dead. Not because of a precise missile, but because of an invisible network built over decades, where technology tracks every move, and people sell secrets for millions. The question isn't who pulled the trigger, it's who gave the location. A radio signal crackles through the dark. Somewhere in the jungles of North Vietnam, a man sits alone with a transmitter. He types out a message in code. The signal travels south, hundreds of miles, straight into the hands of the CIA. They trust this man completely. They have for years. They've sent him money, weapons, and men. What they don't know is that every single thing he's ever told them, every coordinate, every target, every piece of intelligence, was a lie designed by their enemy. This is the story of Agent Aris, the ghost in the machine that helped destroy America's most secret spy program from the inside. Saigon, South Vietnam, 1960. The CIA is desperate. The war in Vietnam is heating up fast. American advisors are flooding into the country. The Pentagon needs to know what's happening inside North Vietnam. The solution seems obvious. Send someone who can blend in, someone who looks like a local, speaks like a local, and knows the North like the back of his hand. They find Pham Chu Yen. He's 38 years old, unremarkable looking, a former radio operator who grew up in the North during the French colonial era, joined the resistance movement as a young man, and eventually ended up in the South. On paper, he's exactly what the CIA needs, a northerner, experienced, connected, and sitting right there in Saigon. There's one problem. He doesn't want the job. For 6 months, a CIA-affiliated officer named Lieutenant Do Van Tien, codename Francois, follows Chu Yen, meets with him, pushes him, patiently, persistently. Finally, after half a year of pressure, Chu Yen agrees. And here is the first thing worth sitting with. Why does it take 6 months to convince a man to take a job that pays well and supposedly serves his country? Most people would jump at an offer like that. The CIA didn't ask that question. They were just glad he said yes. Nha Trang, South Vietnam, early 1961. The testing begins. Chu Yen is flown to Nha Trang for a full round of psychological evaluations. He scores brilliantly. Then he takes 2 more rounds of tests, one in Saigon, one back in Nha Trang. Then comes weeks of training in radio communications and covert tradecraft. Every result comes back excellent. The CIA assigns him the codename Aris, the Greek god of war. They see him as a weapon, their weapon. What they don't see is that they may have just handed that weapon to the other side. Ha Long Bay, North Vietnam. April 1961. On a dark night in April, a small boat cuts quietly through the waters of Ha Long Bay. It drops Chuyen on a beach about 35 miles from Hanoi, near the town of Quang Yen. He steps ashore carrying a radio transmitter, a set of supplies, and a cover story. His mission is to set up a network, gather intelligence on North Vietnamese military movements, and radio his findings back south. Within days, things go wrong. Local villagers notice the unfamiliar boat. They report a stranger in the wooded hills nearby, a man who looks like Chuyen. Then Chuyen makes a critical mistake. He runs into someone he knows, a local contact, and during their conversation, he lets something slip. He mentions why he's there. That information reaches the North Vietnamese Public Security Bureau, the country's powerful intelligence agency, modeled closely after the Soviet KGB. They move quickly. Agents locate Chuyen. They take him in along with everything he's carrying, including his radio. Now, here's where the story shifts entirely. They don't shoot him. They don't put him in a cell and leave him there. Instead, they sit down with him. And they make an offer. U.S. Military Internal Investigation, March 2026. The strike on Shajara Tayyeba was a targeting error. The Defense Intelligence Agency had provided coordinates that classified the school building as part of the IRGC naval base. Those coordinates were outdated. The school had been separated from the base a decade earlier. The data in the targeting system had not been updated. Officers at U.S. Central Command built the strike package from that information. The missile hit exactly where it was aimed. The problem was what the system believed was at those coordinates. Why the outdated intelligence was not reviewed before the strike was ordered remained unanswered as of March 12, 2026. The investigation was still ongoing. Investigators were also examining a second question. The targeting system had incorporated artificial intelligence tools used to identify and prioritize targets. Whether those AI systems contributed to the misidentification had not yet been determined. Washington, D.C. President Trump, speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One on March 7th, was asked directly whether U.S. forces had struck the school. He said, based on what he had seen, it was done by Iran. When a reporter pointed out that Trump appeared to be the only official in his own administration saying that, he replied that he just did not know enough about it. At the same time, U.S. Central Command issued a statement saying it would be inappropriate to comment given that the incident was under investigation. On the Senate floor, Minority Leader Chuck Schumer addressed his colleagues directly. He reminded them that Iran does not possess Tomahawk missiles. By March 11th, 44 U.S. senators signed a letter to the Department of Defense demanding answers. Minab, Iran, March 3, 2026. Thousands of people filled the streets of Minab. The funeral procession stretched through the city. White shrouds, small coffins. Some of the coffins had photographs pinned to them. School portraits, the kind taken at the beginning of the year when everything is still ordinary. An aerial image taken that day showed rows of freshly dug graves stretching across a cemetery 8 kilometers from the school. The school was called Shajara Tayyeba, the Blessed Tree. In Iran, schools are named after things that grow and endure. The building that housed it had been a school for more than 10 years by the time it was destroyed. The soccer field, the murals, the separate gate on the street, all of it visible in imagery that anyone could have pulled up. A missile is not a blunt instrument. A Tomahawk cruise missile is designed for precision. It goes where it is told. The question was never about the accuracy of the weapon. The question was about the accuracy of the information behind it. Rahola knew where his daughter was. The school had called him. She was alive. He drove to her. The targeting system knew where the building was. It had coordinates. They were a decade old. One of those two sources of information was right. March 17, 2026, 2 a.m. After the strike, Israel confirmed the kill quickly. Iran went quiet. Iranian state media generated anticipation of a statement from Larijani himself, proof that he was alive. What emerged instead was a photograph of a handwritten note he had apparently prepared for a sailor's funeral. It did not prove he was dead. It did not prove he was alive. Hours later, Iran's Supreme National Security Council released a formal statement. Larijani was dead. His son Morteza was dead. Several of his guards were dead. The council's statement called him a martyr. An Iranian-American analyst named Trita Parsi made an argument that cut through the noise. He said that Israel had fought to draw the United States into direct conflict with Iran for more than 20 years. And that killing Larijani wasn't just about removing a powerful enemy. It was about removing the one man inside Iran who could have helped end the war. Larijani had been described by analysts as a consensus builder, someone who understood the factions inside the Iranian system well enough to bring them together around a negotiated solution. He had operated inside the security state, but he had also kept lines of communication open to the outside world. With him gone, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, lost one of the few men who understood how his father had actually wielded power. The institutional memory of decades of back-channel diplomacy was gone. The spy network had worked perfectly. The intelligence was precise. The strike was clean. And somewhere in that precision, the war got longer. Tehran, Iran, March 13, 2026. The camera goes back to the rally. Larijani in the crowd, surrounded by guards, smiling. A man who had survived 40 years of Iranian political life, coups within coups, purges, power shifts, a revolution that ate its own, standing in the sunlight 4 days before a missile found him in the dark. The best intelligence operations don't just gather information, they change the world they're watching. What changed here is something the people still fighting this war are going to be living with for a very long time.